A tired guy slowly walked along the night city street, where rare passers-by scurried about under the light of a thin crescent moon, and his sigh merged with the sound of his footsteps. Then, walking through the crowd, he felt even more alone, as if the crowded Friday street only emphasized the emptiness inside. After that, he remembered how after graduating from high school, he got a job and worked so hard that he never had any friends or a girlfriend, and suddenly he realized that he had already entered his third decade of life. Meanwhile, a plastic cup with dessert from a nearby store stood on the table, and the young man thought that such small joys at least a little brightened his lonely everyday life. Later, he sat on the floor of a dim room, staring at the television, while in another part of the house a woman softly asked the child if he could run errands. After this, he fell into quiet reflection on what it meant to be an orphan, not knowing his family, and what the word family really meant. Sitting at the table, he was tormented by thoughts of love and family ties, and behind him, in his imagination, images of a joyful woman and child walking hand in hand arose. Then, overcome with despondency, he decided to go to bed, but suddenly everything went dark before his eyes, and then a bright, blinding light flashed. After this, he woke up in a new body. The woman slowly opened her eyes, surprised by the noise around her, thinking about the time and trying to understand where she was, rising with difficulty. Meanwhile, everyone leaned over the cradle in frozen amazement when they discovered that he had turned into a baby, and someone involuntarily exclaimed in shock. The girl excitedly asked if it was her brother, begging to be allowed to hold him, but the boy immediately objected, demanding a turn for himself, while the other child watched with obvious surprise. Then the woman gently suggested that Hilda take the baby first, while the others wondered whether the children would be able to handle such a fragile creature. She showed Sigurd how to calm the baby, and unexpectedly for himself, he found himself calm while the girl pressed him tightly to her chest, calling him brother, and in his soul a mixture of shock and bewilderment. Then the little girl asked anxiously about him. The boy continued to insist that it was his turn now, and the woman quietly apologized, holding the child in her arms. Then the boy jokingly called himself an older brother, and the girl thoughtfully muttered the names of Hilda and Sigurd. Soon the man gently interrupted the children's game, saying that it was enough for today, although the two little ones impatiently declared that they wanted the new boy to grow up quickly and be able to play outside with them, calling him their big brother and sister at the same time. Then the child wondered if his name was really Aries, and a woman nearby remarked that it sounded very beautiful. After this, she gently touched his face and with sincere warmth thanked him for being there, confessing her love, and he noted to himself that he had never heard such words before. The blonde-haired girl felt a slight, tingling warmth, and the boy next to her happily agreed with her, while the tall man and his companion watched in silence. And finally he thought that he could not even imagine such a moment, and, looking at the small palm in his hand, he wondered if this is what they call family. The boy, who was already 3 years old, wandered around the kitchen and thought about how he found himself in a world full of blades and magic. Then he remembered how surprised he was by the existence of magic and the family itself, while the woman was drying the plates, and the girl next to her silently watched what was happening. After this, Kyle, noticing a presence in the house, surprisingly suggested a game, cheerfully attacking Haruto and asking if he was bored. Meanwhile, the boy with disheveled hair joyfully pulled the younger one by the hand, and he thought about how Sigurd always finds time to play with him, even while preparing for night school. The younger child slowed down a little, and then the older one asked what happened, while the little one felt guilty for constantly caring, although he was glad to be nearby. After this, the boy hugged him tightly, convincing him not to be shy and explaining that he was playing with him only because he wanted to, but the little boy was still worried, as if he had caused him unnecessary trouble. The elder frowned and scolded the younger for not thanking him properly, while the girl nearby watched silently and with a serious look. Then Eliza asked if it was safe for Sigurd to play here, and Haruto was holding the baby in his arms, and a maid stood silently behind them. At that moment, Kyle unexpectedly received a blow, and the girl reminded him of the upcoming lesson and instructed him to look after Aries, despite his protests. After this, Eliza gently scolded Haruto for his clumsiness and asked him to be more careful with himself. While Daniel anxiously clarified her actions, Haruto reluctantly agreed. She was silent for a moment, lost in her thoughts, and he apologized for Aries and suggested they play another time, and then the other girl wished him success in his studies. Soon Sophia explained that taking the lesson outside would be a good opportunity for the three students, and they all listened to her with genuine interest. The boy, amazed, wondered how magic worked and excitedly asked Eliza if it was really possible to teach it to a 3-year-old. Then she demonstrated a fire spell, releasing flames from her palms, and he exclaimed in admiration that this was real magic. At this time, the girl cheerfully asked how Eliza was doing, and she replied that she was doing well, and one of the boys noted that such abilities would be useful for their possession in the future. They started talking about the increase in the number of magical beasts and how their father often went hunting, which prompted the boy to want to learn magic to help the family. Then the youngest timidly asked how one could master magic himself, and the three watched him closely with genuine interest. Later at the table, the girl excitedly told her father that Ares also wanted to learn magic as soon as possible, and the younger brother shouted to his sister, remembering how sweet she was. Her father confidently said that with such abilities she would certainly become a great sorceress if she continued, and the girl jokingly called him an overly caring parent. Finally, one of the girls hesitantly called Ares, and he, smiling softly, asked why she wanted to master magic so much. At the table, the little boy was contemplating how much he longed to master magic so he could help his family, feeling guilty for not yet being able to repay their care. At that moment, the woman softly called Ares' name. Then one of the adults praised the child for his kindness, and a woman standing nearby gently reassured him that there was no need to worry. However, the boy continued to feel sad, believing that he was the only one doing nothing useful. After this, the man with long silver hair gently remarked that it was time for 3-year-old Ares to undergo the ceremony, since this was the first time he had expressed such a strong desire. The girl thanked her father for understanding her feelings, and he explained that the ritual demonstrates the presence of a magical gift and determines which elements a person controls. Then the boy thought about how he had always received only kindness, and now it was time to give back himself, hoping for a successful outcome of the ritual. Soon, a robed figure invited Ares to come forward and place his palm on the crystal ball, while the others watched silently from behind the columns of the vast hall. The girl explained that magic is divided into the elements of fire, water, wind, earth, light, and darkness, and that when a crystal is touched, it lights up with the owner's power. The boy, however, wondered what the word pouvoir meant. Suddenly, he realized with delight that his element was water, and, confirming his sister's words, streams began to swirl around him, causing him to freeze in surprise. Several nuns and the bishop watched quietly from the chapel, not saying a word, while the boy, his eyes wide, was perplexed by what was happening. He wondered if something strange had happened, but an elderly man and 2 women hastened to assure him that only 1 in 10 people was capable of wielding magic, and that he would certainly become a great water sorcerer. Then the good-natured man noted with a smile that the water element was perfect for such a kind child, and affectionately patted the boy on the head. After this, he looked into the distance thoughtfully, and then reassured the child, saying that he should hurry home and share the good news, and the boy nodded enthusiastically. At home, the girl happily greeted Ares and asked about the ceremony, while the other stood silently behind, and the boy on the sofa smiled welcomingly. Then the boy told her that he had discovered water magic within himself, and the girl frowned, wondering why he was apologizing, showing concern and curiosity. She happily explained that she had the same element as Ares, which meant that their mother probably also had water magic. Sophia gently assured the boy that his reputation as a water element was not important at all, because the main thing was who he was, and then the child realized that he was accepted unconditionally. In the evening, the boy sat quietly on the bed, and the woman in an apron stood at the window, and soon the scene changed to a view of their house under cover of night. She wondered thoughtfully what it really meant to master water magic, while the church ministers talked anxiously among themselves, each expressing their doubts. Kyle then turned to Eliza, trying to find out if she knew anything more, while the child, meanwhile, felt relieved by the family's support and decided to study the water, at least just in case. Eliza explained that water magic is poorly suited for combat and even inferior to light magic and healing, but it is indispensable in everyday life and daily affairs. She assured him that if he mastered this power, he could cope with anything, and then the adult standing next to him added that the smart Ares would definitely be able to master it completely. After this, the boy ran with a determined look, thinking that first he needed to study magic more thoroughly, and promised himself to make every effort. Meanwhile, he sat on the floor, surrounded by open books, and realized with annoyance that he was catching almost nothing, although he was eager to use the knowledge in practice. The child soon realized with joy that he had managed to cast a water spell without breaking his wand, and he felt both pride and surprise. He then continued practicing, channeling his power into the earth, realizing that while it was weak for now, it would become useful with practice. As sunset approached, the boy decided to return home, promising to work harder tomorrow. Already in a hurry, he thought about returning the book to his father's room, and noted to himself that it was getting late. At this time, the maid informed the seated gentleman and the woman standing nearby that she had witnessed an incident in the church and warned that the peace would not last long, mentioning Aries' ability to use water magic, while the young man listened in amazement. At the same time, the boy quickly ran down the corridor, then carefully climbed the stairs, while someone on the side thought that it would be better to get him out of here quickly. He thought that perhaps he shouldn't be here, since his element was only water, and it seemed useless and annoying to him. Then one of the brothers noticed Aries hurrying and asked where he was going in such a hurry, and he turned around in confusion and looked extremely awkward. The fair-haired boy tried to clarify what was going on, but Aries looked away and assured him that there was nothing to worry about, although he looked clearly upset. After this, another boy hesitantly called his brother by name, and the child standing next to him clung to him in fear, wondering why he was afraid to look at his face. Later, he sat on the floor, his knees pulled up to his chest and breathing heavily, while the girl watched from the doorway and thought it would be better to get him out of there, while he himself quietly asked why this was all happening. Left alone, he continued to squeeze his knees in his arms and painfully wondered if this would lead to him being rejected again and left alone. The girl, in despair, kept telling herself that she did not want to be alone again, and she felt how important it was to find some use and something to do that she could do. At this time, the fair-haired boy was lying quietly on the pillow when there was a knock, and two worried relatives asked if Aries was okay and if he could hear them. Harriet and Eliza carefully opened the door and noticed a pale child, who weakly explained that they had come to check on his condition for precisely this reason. Then one of the brothers cheerfully asked what had happened, and the elders looked at him with confusion and silence. He smiled softly, apologizing for making them worry, then pulled his sister close, and she quietly agreed, while another family member insisted that Aries be notified if anything happened. Later, the boy reflected that everyone in their home treated him with warmth, but he himself took advantage of this kindness too often and caused trouble, realizing that this had been going on for a long time. Two boys walked slowly along the wooden corridor, and the third one hid by the door, feeling unworthy, but still determined to stay close to his family. Then Harriet, breathing heavily, admitted to himself that his efforts were still not enough, and at that moment the water from his hands hit the plants with force. After this, the boy tried in vain to break the branch, feeling his own uselessness to his family, but then suddenly gathered his courage and decided to become useful, hearing his name called. Meanwhile, Kyle noticed something was wrong and asked Harriet what was going on, after which he complained that he again refused to play together, although he invited him, but he firmly replied that he did not want to interfere with his studies. Then Kyle began to insistently demand that Aries explain whether he was hiding something, and a girl standing nearby heard Sigurd call his brother by name and said with excitement that the whole family was worried about him. The girl quickly intervened and asked what they were doing while one tried to calm the other, who felt excruciatingly guilty for angering his brother and bringing discord into the family again. She said that if they continued to remain silent, Sigurd would begin to worry and get angry, since one of them was particularly bad at handling this, and then one boy suddenly took off, apologizing as he ran. At this time, Harriet and Eliza exchanged a brief glance, then Eliza heard a knock and went to the door, opening it in front of a worried woman, who immediately asked if something serious had happened. After this, the girl thought about how much she wanted to be useful to her family without causing trouble and worry, and their caring faces and her own persistent efforts came to mind. Meanwhile, the boy was sitting alone in the corner, thinking that he didn't want to be alone again, and then three groups of people appeared before his eyes, smiling at him warmly. He stretched out his hand in desperation, dreaming of being next to the 5 happy figures who stood a little further away, as if beckoning him to them. But soon he fell to the ground and struggled to get up, realizing that his mana was exhausted and his body was not obeying him, and the silence of the forest was becoming increasingly unsettling. Then the boy remembered that his brother and sister were most likely still fighting nearby, and he remembered how his brother had mentioned dangerous monsters nearby. Soon a wolf appeared before him, and, frightened by this sight, he firmly clung to thoughts of his family, determined at all costs to see them again, and concentrated, raising his hand to call for water. At that moment, a woman appeared in front of him, kindly asking if everything was okay, and he looked up in amazement, recognizing his own mother in her. Then the child quickly asked if it was really his mother, and she gently replied that she knew what had happened because her brother and sister had already told her everything. Meanwhile, the stern man was asked by the maid why he had done this, and in the distance, two young men were running towards him, loudly shouting his name. The child turned to his father and sister with excitement, asking why they had gone into the forest alone at night, and the young man regretfully admitted that he had only caused unnecessary trouble, and the others watched in silence. Then the adult asked Ares why he had taken such steps, and the boy, with tears in his eyes, apologized for his uselessness, admitting that with all his heart he wanted to stay with his loved ones. Finally, the girl remembered how she accidentally overheard a conversation about how she would not be able to stay, and decided to become useful at any cost, just to stay close to her family forever. The young man, with tears in his eyes, admitted that he considered himself useless, because his magical abilities were too weak, and the elder remembered how he had once heard the same words before. Then he clenched his fist, doubting his own actions, after which he suddenly hugged the confused girl, who was silently trying to break free, and desperately declared his desire to stay close to everyone, no matter what. After this, she quietly asked Ares for forgiveness, and he, shocked and with wet eyes, remembered the conversation about his possible expulsion, but immediately heard assurances that no one was going to kick him out. Meanwhile, the elderly mentor gently explained to the boy that sending him to the Imperial Academy ahead of schedule was only necessary to reveal his hidden gift for magic. Then the boy timidly asked if he could stay, and received a warm consent. Immediately after this, the smiling hostess invited Ares to rest a little and then return home together. Soon the head of the family bitterly admitted his guilt, because he was absent too often and did not notice Ares' suffering, and twilight was already thickening outside the windows of the house. Then the caring guardian admitted that she had hidden the truth for the sake of the child's peace of mind, but in the end had only hurt him, after which the other girl added that responsibility lay with both of them. After this, the man suggested that perhaps it would be better to allow the boy to get stronger, especially considering the crack in the crystal during the ritual, and the interlocutor calmly agreed to entrust the decision to him. Meanwhile, the shy boy finally decided to ask Eliza a question, and she and her cheerful friend supported him, assuring him that he could safely ask about anything he didn't understand. After this, Eliza and her companions were overjoyed to learn that Haruto had turned to them for help, and then a stern voice announced that Ares would begin full-fledged magic classes and lectures from that day on. Soon, Sophia opened the first lesson, unfolded a map, and began to explain in detail the peculiarities of Nizel's domain, so that all the listeners understood the situation. After this, they found themselves in a spacious field, where the mentor clarified that the lands of Nizel, under the rule of Baron Missile, are famous for their warm climate all year round. Then the boy noted to himself that snow and ice were unknown here, and the girl with glasses added that she had read in books, on this continent no one had ever seen snow. The girl in the white apron agreed that this was an interesting observation, and the two children suggested that growing crops should be easier, to which she explained that the local lands were poor. After that, they talked about the poverty of the region, simple food, lack of minerals and weak agriculture, although one child noted that it was easier to grow crops here. Then the boy wondered if water magic could be used to help in the fields, and after trying a spell, he summoned a stream that surprised the girl, who recognized Ares' power. After that, the silver-haired girl asked if he had just missed a spell, and the guy awkwardly admitted that it could be a mistake, but she gently assured him that everything was fine, apologizing for not hearing. Then she insisted he go outside and repeat it wordlessly, asking him to exert maximum effort. The young man cast the spell silently, summoning a powerful flow, and the observer concluded that without the need for incantations, the mana flow was more effective, significantly enhancing the magic. After this, he noted that activating the spell was much easier than before, and the girl explained that calmness and lack of tension remove internal blockages. Finally, the two little ones cried out joyfully in honor of Ares, and the calm maid stood nearby, while the boy himself regretted that he had not helped his father in the fight against the monsters, but the girl encouraged him with the idea of learning magic together. The silver-haired girl quietly expressed her desire to help soon, while the red-haired guy cheerfully said goodbye and, waving his hand, walked away. After that, he winced when someone playfully flicked him on the head, and then heard a disgruntled reproach for yet another reckless undertaking, to which he hastened to justify himself by saying that it was just an unsuccessful attempt. Then the long-haired girl consoled the younger child, who apologized, explaining that Ares loved his family with all his heart and there was no need to apologize for such words. After this, she thought about asking Ares for help, deciding that this was the right moment, and he happily agreed, promising to support her with all his might. Meanwhile, one of the girls gently led her younger brother inside, inviting him in, and a suitcase and a school bag lay on the floor nearby. Then the boy realized that his sister would soon leave for the royal capital, and there were two more girls standing nearby, one with a warm smile, and the other with a sad look. After this, the boy called out to Ares and sheepishly asked for help, adding that he could not refuse, since his older sister had so kindly asked him for a favor. Liliana happily suggested that they start choosing clothes and, with a beaming smile, showed off 2 dresses at once, encouraging everyone to participate. Then she cheerfully pulled out a few more dresses from her childhood, and the younger girl, confused, admitted that she didn't understand why she needed to try them on, but was immediately told that everything looked great on her. Soon one of the girls picked up the dress on the hanger, and the boy enthusiastically declared that it perfectly emphasized his sister's bright character. After this, she felt confident, deciding that in this outfit she would be able to express herself and not forget Ares even in the capital, and the boy turned to him with gratitude. The girl then cheerfully replied that she was always ready to help, and the scene changed to a quiet village street, where the boy quietly called out to his sister, standing next to 2 friends. She promised to come home often and asked him not to make a sad face, while the other guy watched as one of them almost burst into tears. After this, one of the girls urged the others not to cry, admitting that she herself was sad, and the boy supported Ares, saying that he should be seen off with a smile, despite the tears. Then the man sternly ordered the girl to take care of herself and, if the groom appeared, to be sure to bring him for approval, and the woman gently assured the boy that the meeting would definitely take place again. After that, the sister promised to study hard and train her magic so that she could return more mature, and the brother vowed to become so strong that he would never give in to her, and they exchanged determined smiles. Soon she joyfully waved her hand and announced her departure, standing with a suitcase near the carriage, and those gathered around wished her to take care of herself. Then the boy silently vowed to gain the strength to protect his sister and loved ones, after which he wiped away his tears with his sleeve. Meanwhile, the girl was anxiously wondering if she would be able to fit into school life, sitting by the window as the carriage rolled along the winding road through the dense forest. In conclusion, she quietly promised to become stronger to protect Ares, and he, smiling, assured that no matter how the future turned out, he would always be there. The little boy lay on the floor, thinking about how several months had passed since his sister had left. Despite her cheerful letters, in which she wrote that everything was fine, he felt a sad loneliness. Then another child suddenly appeared in the doorway, surprised to see anyone in his older sister's room. In response, the boy quietly admitted he was just briefly reminiscing about their Aniki. Afterwards, the girl insisted on going outside, even though they should have been studying. The boy hesitated a little, but silently followed her when she smiled and offered to go with him. Then one of the boys remarked that they hadn't been to Ares's in a while. Meanwhile, 2 boys who had been working out at home mentioned that they sometimes trained in the garden and suggested going into town for a change of scenery. Hearing this, the boy happily agreed, and his tall friend patted him on the head and suggested he ask Eliza's permission right away. The boy thought this gesture signaled the elder's first real smile. The girl thoughtfully suggested turning this into a short excursion for everyone and at the same time showing Ares the surroundings of the estate. Then one woman added that it would be better to prepare too, since Sigurd was probably already bored with the lectures. At that moment, the young man quietly called out to his older brother. After that, they found themselves in a noisy market, where the little one looked with admiration at the crowd of people in the shop windows, and the older one warned him to stay close so as not to get lost. The man then explained that this street was the only commercial place in their lands and at the same time a recreation area for ordinary residents. Soon, the boy inquired with interest about the beautiful stones displayed on the counter, and the girl asked what kind of shop it was. They explained that it was a shop selling magical stones. Afterwards, Kyle bought a small souvenir, and the seller showed him how to use it. The boy was amazed when the object came to life in his hand and began rolling, demonstrating a simple feat of magic. The elder then explained that each person has only one natural magical attribute, although adventurers often use several, and the girl agreed that this was generally true. Then one of them added that there are rare people called duelists, who possess both elements at once. The boy listened to her with great attention. The girl nodded in agreement, and the tousled-haired boy admitted he'd recently learned about the doubles but had already forgotten the details. The younger brother noted that his brother's explanation sounded simple and clear. After this, the girl asked Ares to continue teaching him, and the boy enthusiastically agreed. But then he suddenly realized he had no weapons at all, and was surprised. Soon, the older man warmly greeted the young gentleman and his companions. The boy modestly replied that he had merely helped his father when he was thanked for carrying the luggage. Then he assured that he would definitely help again, because in the future he should become the new head, and asked to rely on him in such matters. After this, the elder introduced the child as his brother and inquired about what weapon he would choose. At the same time, the child began to ponder his future role as a feudal lord. Later, Ares and the boy walked down the hallway, and an elderly woman waved after them. As they exited, Ares smiled warmly, noticing the child's admiring look. Later, sitting on a bench, the woman praised Ares for his reliability and popularity, and he merely apologized for engaging the boy in a business-like conversation, silently resolving to help when the time came. Finally, he carefully wiped the crumbs from the child's face and smiled silently, and the child thought that perhaps the future ahead of him wasn't so bad. The younger boy hesitantly called out to his older brother, who enthusiastically suggested they stop by to see their mother, since her workplace was right nearby. Then the child wondered what exactly their mother was doing, and soon they came to a large house, where a friendly woman greeted the guests with a smile and asked if they had come specifically to see her. The girl apologized for the unexpected visit, explaining that they were showing Ares around, and the woman thanked Eliza for the information. Afterwards, the boy told his mother that the building was a hospital, a refuge for the wounded, exiles, orphans and former slaves, and proudly noted to himself how important a role she played here. The girl politely informed Sheila of Rando's presence and immediately hurried away, and Sheila thought that this really might not be a bad idea. Sheila then invited the two to follow her, promising to show them exactly what their mother did. At this time, the man with bandaged legs apologized to Sheila for the minor injury, and she pointed to the young man standing nearby, calling him her second son, Ares. Ares Mistel introduced himself to Rand, who responded politely, and the boy added that Rand often went hunting with their father, which raised a curious question about the parent. Then the girl shyly admitted that she was seeing healing magic for the first time, and her interlocutor kindly agreed to show her. Afterwards, she announced that she was going to heal Rand's wound and asked him to watch closely. He nodded in agreement, and she quietly called for calm waters for the healing. Soon, Eliza cast a spell over the wounded man, and Haruto watched in amazement as the damage quickly disappeared. The woman thanked Rand for letting her son watch, and he readily agreed, and then she mentioned that Ares was a water element, further piquing the boy's interest. After that, they discussed the rarity of fighters in their land and Rand's value to the territory, but soon someone suggested changing the subject and just having fun on the way home. Then the girl gently asked Sigurd if he understood everything, and he assured her that he did with a slight smile, holding her hand tightly. Later, as they were walking through a field at sunset, the man asked the boy how he had enjoyed his day. He happily replied that he had learned a lot and had enjoyed the delicious shashlik. After that, he thought that Ares was still too young and might forget this day and them, but he really wanted to remain in his brother's memory. Then Haruto firmly declared that he would never forget his family, and someone nearby told him to stop puffing out his cheeks. The girl, however, noticed his hidden sadness and decided that she wanted to support him the same way she had once been supported. After this, the boy joyfully invited his older brother to return home together, squeezing his hand tightly as they walked along the country road. Then the child felt relief and happiness, noticing his brother's smile, and joyfully hugged his hand, thinking how wonderful it was to see his laughter. In conclusion, the girl enthusiastically promised to learn 500 million spells, and the young man replied with a smile that the next time they met, they should both be real adults. Sophia comforted the boy, who was close to tears, while Daniel thought about what it meant to be a man, and behind them, two women watched silently. The man then warned Sigurd that girls from the capital could be frightening, and advised him to show them his girlfriend at least once. But the boy enthusiastically retorted that there were things far more important than even Ares himself. At that moment the coachman informed the young gentleman that it was time to leave, and the boy joyfully hugged his friend, who, laughing, said that such a hug tickled. After this, the boy cheerfully said goodbye to everyone, promising to return soon, and ran outside, while the others watched his departure with varying feelings. Then he wished his older brother a safe journey, and he responded with a confident, determined look and waved his hand goodbye. After this, the boy firmly decided to work to become as kind as his mother and sister, as smart as Eliza, and as strong as his father and older brother. Meanwhile, he was pondering a book on magic, which said that the precision of the imagination increased the power of spells, and he wondered if imagining a roaring flame altered the power of the fire. He then wondered if it was possible to change the properties of magic using images, and even considered whether it was possible to change the temperature of spells. So the days passed under a clear sky, while a determined voice inside him repeated again and again that it was worth trying. Soon the father asked if his 5-year-old son was ready for his first real hunting trip, and the boy confidently replied that he was ready at any moment. After this, the child concentrated and suddenly released the aqua ball spell, which startled the woman and child who were watching from afar. He enthusiastically praised the power and precision of his water magic, while the girl in the maid uniform stood behind him and listened silently. Then the boy thought about how he was already 5 years old and had trained a lot with sword and magic, so it was time to test his strength in a real fight in order to be useful to everyone. After that, he remembered his father's monster-slaying expedition the following day and decided to ask permission to go with them. The elder agreed to take the younger one, although he was worried that he might seem too young for such a task. Then the man advised him to train harder in magic and fencing, and the child happily asked whether it was really possible to participate, despite his age. The cheerful girl advised him to rest today and get ready for tomorrow, and he gratefully agreed, sincerely thanking her. Soon Eliza asked if a letter from him had finally arrived, and the other woman thoughtfully replied that she wanted to do everything in her power for this child. The girl then confirmed that the letter contained an apology for his absence, an explanation of his affairs, and a request to meet with Ares in 2 weeks to discuss the future. After this, she confidently said that there was still a chance to keep everything as is, but her interlocutor calmly objected that a decision would still have to be made. Eliza, along with her 2 companions, looked at the screen where the man raised his fist, and quietly admitted to herself that she would like to keep everything as it was, while understanding that everyone has their own responsibilities. Then one of them suggested focusing on what could be done right now to help the child become stronger and confident in his future, whatever path he chose. After this, he told Eliza that he would take Ares with him on a mission tomorrow and would like her to go too, to which she agreed and offered her help. Meanwhile, the little child quietly got off the carriage, and someone's voice firmly decided to do everything possible for him. Soon they came to the huge gates of the unknown forest, and one of the participants noted their impressive size, while the other confirmed that they had arrived. The man then explained that the gate and wall protected the village from monsters, adding that although the forest was mostly inhabited by weak creatures, their danger should not be underestimated. Deeper in the thicket, ominous eyes gleamed, and a voiceover reminded him that sometimes truly powerful monsters emerge from the forest in search of prey. After this, the squad prepared to move on, and one of them reminded everyone to remain alert. The boy responded confidently, showing determination. The young man admired the untouched beauty of the forest, but a girl in a maid's uniform warned him not to go too far, and he quickly apologized, staying away, closer to the group. They soon spotted a small creature named Ratatosk, distinguished by its distinct territoriality and aggressiveness. One said it looked smaller than he remembered, while the other explained that it was because the observer himself had grown. The man then called the boy to go on, and he agreed with some trepidation, calling him father, while the maid watched them silently. At this time, the girl in the maid's outfit thought that the owner was now happy, and the boy nearby noted that his father was behaving somehow unusually. She admitted to herself that she also wanted to fight side by side with Ares and see how much stronger he had become, realizing that she was not the only one who shared this desire. Soon the boy decided to prove to his father what he had achieved, and the girl supported him, but they noticed that the man had already gone far ahead. The group soon noticed goblins approaching, and the man drew his sword while the woman and child watched anxiously from behind. The boy saw that the creatures were growing in number and hastened to ask the silver-haired girl to retreat, but she resolutely stated that they must face the danger together. Then the girl insisted on taking the initiative, surprising the boy with a hidden weapon, and with a firm look, she confidently stepped forward. Eliza calmly faced the goblin attack and summoned a whirlwind that swirled around her, preparing to unleash it on her opponents. The boy was amazed by her power when Eliza unleashed a powerful hurricane blow, and he wondered in confusion if she had always possessed such power. The young girl then explained that even a weak spell could kill an enemy if it hit a vulnerable spot, and the boy enthusiastically confirmed that he had been closely watching her every move. She explained that even small daggers or simple spells could be formidable weapons if used skillfully, and she confidently fought off the onslaught of several goblin-like creatures at once. After that, she told him to remember everything she taught and to feel it in practice in a real battle, while he watched in admiration as the enemies were destroyed so quickly. She then warned him not to lose focus, as he would be the next to fight. He doubted his own strength after what he saw, and at that moment, 2 goblins suddenly pounced on the armored warrior from behind. The tall man instantly raised his sword and covered the child behind his back, who watched what was happening with fear. Having confirmed that some of the enemies still remained, the warrior wiped his blade, and the boy looked with admiration at the strength of his 2 companions, who modestly remained silent, not revealing the secret. Then he told her that he used to be an adventurer and traveled with her mother, which surprised the girl, and she confirmed what she heard. The man with long hair listened silently as the 4 stood shoulder to shoulder, and someone impatiently asked for the story to continue. However, the man suggested leaving the rest for later, as they were still in a dangerous forest. The boy agreed, and the girl hesitantly called him father, to which he apologized. After this, the boy enthusiastically admitted that he dreamed of becoming an adventurer like his father, in order to be closer to him. He said that he was happy to hear such words and asked to continue teaching him different things, showing sincerity and kindness. Then the man warmly told his son that he was proud of him and believed that he would grow up to be a worthy man, and the boy accepted these words with joy and slight surprise. The group soon encountered a new goblin, and one of them reminded them to remain calm, just like in training, while the other prepared to engage in combat. He ordered to aim for the vulnerable spot and with determination launched an attack at the rapidly approaching enemy. The man praised Ares for his flexibility of thought and amazing ability to adapt in battle, and the girl noted with relief that the reaction was natural and not too harsh. He then admitted that he wanted to try more in a real battle and did not expect that even this result would surprise them so much. At that moment, the young girl joyfully realized that her magic was working and she was able to help everyone, but the man urgently ordered Ares to retreat. The boy thought that he had long wanted to test himself in battle, and, to his surprise, he noticed the reaction of the others, and then happily realized that his spells could actually be useful. Suddenly, the squad noticed a terrifying hobgoblin with a huge sword, and one of them quickly named the monster, warning the others of the danger. A sinister monster with sharp features appeared before them, and everyone realized with surprise and alarm that it was a hobgoblin. The girl wondered why such an enemy had appeared so close to the edge of the forest, and her voice sounded worried and confused. He thought that the situation was too difficult for Ares now, but he hesitated, feeling the gaze of the girl and boy watching him from behind his back. Then the determined figure gripped the sword tightly, remembering the hope of raising someone who would one day be able to face fate head-on and not break. He noted that the enemy was huge, although different from the previous ones, and she admitted that she was afraid, but at the same time insisted that she would not let fear get the better of her. At this time, Ares stood firmly with a small sword in his hands, declaring his desire to be useful to everyone, and the older man asked if he intended to fight alone. Then the armored warrior ordered a retreat, turning to Eliza. She hesitated, concern evident in her gaze, but he, understanding her doubts, nevertheless insisted on a temporary retreat. Meanwhile, a tall, goblin-like opponent stood in front of the cloaked figure, who suggested trusting in fate and facing the threat together. The young man clenched his fist and decided that although his father was probably stronger, he had to live up to his expectations and believe in his own strength to try. Then Kyle released a water attack with fury, determination shining in his eyes as the jet hit its target. However, the boy realized with horror that the blow did no harm, and the monster only grinned smugly, demonstrating confidence. Then he realized that the strength was not enough, and decided to squeeze it tighter, strengthening the spell, but at that moment the man loudly called out his name. The boy soon found himself under pressure from a powerful attack from the enemy and thought it was too much, but at the last moment he managed to parry the furious kick with his sword. He fell and bruised himself, noticing his own weapon lying on the ground, while a massive monster nearby was deftly twirling a similar blade. Then the child with the wooden sword firmly declared that he would not give it up, because this item was too dear to him, because it was a gift from his older brother. After this, the determined boy handed the sword to the other, demanding that he take it without hesitation and use it immediately. The goblin launched a blow with his hand, but the boy managed to spot a weak spot and hit it right on target, causing the enemy to lose his balance and stagger back. Taking advantage of the moment, the boy rushed forward and quickly drew his wooden blade, while the monster fired several beams in response. Then he confidently raised his wooden sword, said that he was with him again, and prepared for a new fight. Haruto noticed the swiftness of the enemy, who had already raised his weapon to attack, and prepared to defend himself. At that moment, the girl desperately called out to Ares, and he watched as the boy deftly dodged the blow, almost getting a scratch. The man asked worriedly if Ares was okay, and he weakly replied that everything was fine, but the two people nearby noticed that he was still not ready and expressed concern for him. The goblin grabbed the boy by the collar and lifted him off the ground, and he thought that a decisive blow was needed, otherwise he would quickly run out of breath. Then another noted with concern that Ares might not last much longer, and admitted that it was too early for him to cope with such a test. At that moment, the armored warrior resolutely rushed to stop the advancing monster, while the cloaked figure supported Ares, saying that he had done everything possible and now the outcome could be entrusted to fate. He heard his father's worried voice and remembered that he had always been the one being protected, and his father called out to him anxiously, asking him to hold on. The boy, lying on the ground, rose with difficulty and clutched the sword with determination, thinking that he must change and become stronger for the sake of protecting others, and silently asked to be watched over. The energetic child confidently declared that he would certainly win, and the serious Ares listened to him attentively and quietly acknowledged what he had said. After this, the determined boy demanded to show real strength, tightly gripping the handle of the blade and standing firmly on his feet. He pondered how to pierce the tough skin of the massive armored enemy, and despite his doubts, he was determined to find a solution. Then he remembered that the compressed water magic and sword still didn't have enough power, and he ordered himself to hold on even if it was hard. At this time, the girl explained that on this continent it never snows and the climate remains warm all year round, and the boy listened attentively, raising his hands. The boy with the wooden sword stepped forward cautiously while the other watched from behind a tree, and the two looked at him with alarm and surprise. One of the participants focused on increasing the penetrating power in order to gather a mass of energy into one point, looking at the large enemy in armor. He concentrated with all his might, forcing himself to channel all his energy into one blow, demanding more power from himself again and again. The boy desperately stretched out his hand, his eyes wide with horror as something rushed towards him at incredible speed. A powerful force shattered the glasses, and the hand, piercing the air, broke the glass into sharp fragments. The goblin then swung his sword, but the determined boy quickly cast an ice spell, freezing the blow in midair. In response, the furious creature released a powerful attack called Ice Spear, which rushed forward with great force.